would imagine right around,
Park up there, take it down, I guess.
Huh?
right before you got to
Yeah, come up. Yeah. You're welcome.
I'll wait till you're done. I'm not just standing there silent.
It's horrible.
All right, so our next company is Harmony Legal. That will advance you. It almost looks like someone turned it off. Go hit the button and see. Oh no, it's on.
It works. There you go.
So you'll have 6 minutes, and then we'll do Q&A.
Cool.
Cameron. Can you hush them or tell them to go around the corner?
Yeah. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Seneca Gonzalez. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Harmony Legal. Before I get into what Harmony Legal is or what we do, I just kind of want to talk about how I got here into this project. So probably my first startup company was kind of more of a hobby. I did when I was about 17 years old. It was kind of by accident. Built an e-commerce company for a warehouse that I was actually working at. Spun that off, and some of those clients started wanting that same technology, and so implemented that to them. During that process, ended up selling that to what at the time was one of the largest hosting companies in the United States at the time, up in Baltimore. So yeah, that was kind of was my personal journey first into startups. Kind of left that and got into project management of some multi-million-dollar projects for more proprietary programming for clients. And then spent some time overseas, and so now coming to California, partnered with a startup company up in Davis, and they're now in Sacramento. And so going into that, we kind of took on a multi-billion-dollar company in the restaurant space. So we went head on to them, and that company is now doing very well. So they are located here in Sacramento, in the restaurant industry. So when I kind of broke off, started talking with a law firm about doing this project and partnering with them. I really wanted to build something special if I was going to do a startup company again. And I think we were able to do that. We kind of diverted a little bit. What we ended up doing was we built a time machine. This is where you say like, ooh,
I love the doctor.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, like this time machine doesn't fly you through space and time, but our time machine is simply we create time for law firms. So lawyers who are very busy and say, I don't have enough time, I can't find enough time in the day. We want to remedy that for them and create time for their team, so they can be more efficient at what they do. So we really, there's a lot of competition in this space, and I'll talk about it in just a second. And we want to find out like why. Why is there so much competition? Because usually if you have a market that's saturated, it's because somebody's not doing something right, or they're not answering the question, and so people just keep trying to go into that industry, and the problem is never really solved. So we kind of took this holistic view of law firms, and how does a law firm operate, what are the different components of it, and we tried to answer some of those questions here. And as we started breaking out the different components, we kind of got to problem one, which is there's all these individual components: billing, clients, emails, case management, notes. And we kind of fell in the same trap that we think everyone else was in, and that was we saw all these individual components, but as we kept looking at our data and started laying stuff out, we realized like no, like there's these high relations to all this stuff, and it's moving data. Emails, you think of Gmail, you send an email out of Gmail, that's a separate component, but then you get a reply from the client, and you have to go back into your practice management software and put a note into the case. We thought why is that? It's just wasted time, that's extra time. And so the same problem that the law firm that we partnered with on this originally that they were having was they ended up managing their practice management software instead of the practice management software really helping them in managing their law firm. And so so we kind of started seeing these relationships again, like how emails relate to notes. So when an email is sent or received, that should automatically go to the case notes. Like there should be no in between or user interaction or manual process for that. When you create a note, that's time spent on a case. That should automatically go to your invoices, billing time. Invoice. There's a relationship between invoices and schedules and appointments. and even down to like fine-grained aspects such as vacation. Someone asked us, well, you have all these appointments in your system, but what happens when the attorney goes on vacation, right? Like, the client should be notified about that automatically. There shouldn't have to be this manual process that happens and time spent on that. So we're really trying to get to how do we help a law firm run more smoothly. So that kind of brings us to the problem too that we saw was what the competition sees is they've really built a data-centric platform. And what I mean by that is you put data into a system, and then when you want that data, you manually have to go and get that data. They're just essentially data storage. And when we were taking our holistic view, we wanted to say, we don't want to look at it from the data and build software around that data. We want to look at the user and how the user interacts with the software and build the software around the user experience. And so we really wanted to be user-centric in building our software. So kind of just quick example of that to help you understand would be like if you think about your kitchen, you go and buy groceries, you go and put those groceries in the cupboard. When you want something to heat, you have to go and take it out, right? That's kind of data-centric, putting data in and taking it out. But imagine that you go and you buy groceries from Blue Apron or from Trader Joe's, or wherever you go and shop. You put those groceries in, you go about your day, you're productive, you come home and there's a meal on your table. You have a personal chef, right? They don't just make that meal for you, but they also make it for your friends and your family. And we kind of want to be that personal chef in the sense that, if the user puts data into the system, when there's an event data trigger that happens that some other data needs to know about, that data can notify the user automatically, but as well as other parties that are involved in that case, such as the manager of that case, the client on that case, if that client has to do something. And so now the case, is moving forward automatically. So that's that. So I can kind of jump to this other slide. So most of the time when people see data, they think about, if you're technology savvy, you think about SQL. Oh, time. Okay. All right. Well, I'll just jump. So this is kind of like how we view data essentially, and it allows us to be just some really cool things as far as how we look at data and how we move things forward in a case. Everything's interconnected. So our competition and market share. Again, there's a lot of competition in this market. Clio is probably one of the most well-funded in this market space. The latest round was $26 million. Some of our market people that we've talked to, so out of 50 law firms that we've recently talked to, about 48 said they would consider switching to Harmony Legal, which I think says a lot to me, in that their software that they're using is not doing what they expect it to do, and we want to be able to be there for that. One of our biggest hurdles is getting old cases into our system, so that's something that we're still trying to figure out. So where are we at? We're about 3 months from beta. Fingers crossed. I think I keep saying that. We have a laundry list of ideas and innovation that we want to implement. So we've kind of narrowed it down. We have about 4 features that we want to finish before we are out to beta. Current averages about anywhere from $59 to like $129 per user is the industry standard. We want to be at $79 per user per month. What we hope to accomplish is to have 500 paying users within the first year. So that could either be 100 law firms with 5 users, or that could be 1 law firm with 500 users, right? So what do we need? One is from you guys, if you know law firms that would be interested in being early adopters or talking with us about it, we would love to talk with them and give them a demo and kind of show them where we're at and get their law firm on it. JavaScript or Node.js developers, and then also anybody sales and marketing that can help us out getting the word out. There we go. So we're Harmony Legal.
Right, so you already said kind of how this community can help you.
Yeah.
Did you want to turn your camera off, or did you?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
I mean, you don't have to turn it off.
No.
It just looked like you were reading in
Oh no, I was going to set the. I was just setting the remote over there.
So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up.
Yeah, so this is one of our developers. So this is Robert Usher.
You're for the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll open it up to questions.
So why is it? That's my question. But
Yeah.
So most of these data for law firms with technology is again you said data storage is part of it. I mean, there's got to be somebody in the front end who knows what to do with that data, right? Like I mean, and that's really where the biggest problem for a lot of these law firms is. I mean, how do you solve that part because they'll still need that data.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So one is one is if we're focusing on the user experience, right? We're able to create a system that hopefully makes sense to the end user. So there's not as much training time. So when a secretary or an office manager, sits down and use that software, hopefully things make sense, right? I mean, that's our goal, is to make it, for the end user. So they put data in there. Generally, there's going to be some kind of scheduled event, that happens on there. And so in that time, when that time comes, whether that's a file that's due or something, that information starts going out to the people in the law firm, so maybe the manager, right? And so that sends an email to the manager, and the manager replies to that. And so then that information, starts getting trickled out to the people that are attached to that case. So the data is kind of self-generating in a sense, in that way. But then, you take, and I think, giving you a demo, that would probably help, if you're interested in it. But, kind of seeing the overall picture, right? So you talk about data. Most of the software will break all the different components up. We kind of look at a whole view. So when you open up a client case, like all of their data is there that you need. And so it's pretty easy to find like what you're actually looking for. You're not having to step through a bunch of different screens to find what you're looking for. I don't know, does that answer your question at all?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened with it too.
Yeah.
So I've used various CMS softwares where if you're working through a case, you're helping somebody, you got one page of data, you need to find something else, you gotta go another page. You gotta go another page. What Harmony Legal feels like is, have you seen the movie Minority Report? Where Tom Cruise is just kind of like swooshing everything together. It kind of feels like that, where you don't have to go to all these little containers to get things. It's kind of all coming to you with what you need.
So you're the person in the goo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start back here.
So for your guys' interface, I'd imagine a lot of law firms all want something completely different. How customizable is your product going to be if it's?
Yeah, right now not very customizable.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I don't know how much we'll actually stick with that. One is in terms of support goes, like I don't know that we really want it to be that customizable in the sense of if someone calls up for support, like we don't want to have to support especially for a large law firm that may have a lot of tech calls coming in possibly with questions like, do we really want to support if we're telling them to go to this particular screen or settings or whatever, like do we want to have to try and figure out what their screen actually looks like versus having a standard feel.
Okay. Well, because I'd imagine like if you're a law firm and you're saving them time,
Yeah.
that's what your pitch is,
Sure.
and that's more time that they can bill, which means more revenue. So I know you had $79 per user, but I imagine that there's some sort of other, is there no other fee to set it up or up?
Yeah. So those would definitely those will have to be additional fees. Like I talked about, trying to get the old cases into the system. If we are the ones that end up doing that, or we have people that are doing that, I mean, obviously that's going to have to be an upfront cost of actually setting that up and getting those cases in. That might be something that they do in-house, and we just kind of train someone in-house to do that. And then also data storage. So we are storing files, on the cloud, and so essentially, if they have huge data sets, that will essentially be additional charges as well. So yeah, go ahead.
You actually answered my first question. So you're gonna store the data on the cloud.
Correct.
Any plans to use AI? I mean, it's probably a little premature, but do you own all the data?
Meaning, I mean, the law firm would own
the entire data
right?
pool.
Yeah.
So once you launch and scale, hopefully nationwide,
Yeah.
you're gonna have access to an amazing information.
That is correct, yes. And so that was one of the reasons. So we're using graph databases. I kind of showed you that one screenshot. So we can basically start anywhere in our data set and get back to whatever data we want, which is really cool for artificial intelligence. So yes, it was one of the early plans that we had in building out our data set. So we are set up nicely to do that, but we are not doing that currently.
Yeah, and the second thing is my classic question: anything proprietary, whether it's back office or the user interface, what makes you guys special, different from everybody else?
Sure. So we have a couple features. I don't know that we'll patent them. So what I talk about one thing real quick is so like form building, right? So we have like this form creator that you can do. So you can talk about how you want to collect data from a user or from a client, whether it's email address or name or whatever. And then you can take a PDF, open up that PDF, and map that PDF out to that data or where that data is pulling from. So then later on in the case, if you have like a file that you reuse all the time, like a G28 file or something, you just click one single button and it'll fill that PDF out for you, based on the data that's already in your system somewhere. So we have some features like that that are very unique to us, that no one, at least in this space, is doing that for sure. So we do have stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying you were going to launch in about 3 months.
Beta, yes. Yeah, that is a plan, correct, yeah.
You got your projections done. What was the basis for your projection?
As far as launching, well, I mean, launching is really going to be, we've kind of narrowed it down to like our last 4 features that we're trying to finish up. And then that is, yes, I mean, as soon as those are done, I mean, then it's just kind of go time for us. And, we really got to hit the streets and start selling. That's it. And then as far as how many, so kind of, again, based on the number of, people that we've talked to, talking to 50 and 48 that would consider, I mean, of those 48, I mean, how many are actually, maybe 10, right? I mean, maybe 5, that actually would make the switch, if we look at, conservative numbers. So a lot of it's just going to be, a numbers game. The more people we talk to, I think we'll switch. But I think seeing that the market is looking for something, I think puts us in a good position to have good sales for that.
How long would that switch be? So if they said, yeah, we want to do this, I mean, that's a huge, and that's probably the biggest barrier for probably them. Like, even if they love the product, right, is will this continue?
Yeah.
How?
That is a good question, one that I don't have a great answer for. So one law firm that has committed to us going forward, so their plan is to keep their existing software and start using ours with new cases coming in. So then, as those old files, finish up, then. So I mean, that full life cycle could be, a year, maybe actually, getting off their old system. So that'd be, I mean, really, that's going to be new for me. That'd be interesting to kind of see how that plays out.
I mean, you could look at other industries, maybe. So like one company that comes to mind is Carbon Blue. They do like fleet management data, and so I don't know if like taking that data, like what the typical time is, just to understand, when you're making that pitch, it's like, oh, the average length might be 6 months or something, so they understand. But
that's good.
Versus being ambiguous and I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Carbon Blue. Okay. Yeah.
So I have a question about your team.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're a developer. Is everyone on your team a developer, and do you have anyone who has legal experience who's on your team?
Yes. So the co-founder is a lawyer. So he's not here today. He's actually in trial. So yeah. So that was kind of how this product got started. Was some of his frustrations with one of the other law firm management software that's out there, and not meeting the needs of his law firm. And so that's kind of how this was made to meet the need that he had. So he's a lawyer. Developers, we had taken on several interns, over the summer, and then John Potter is sales. So he's a sales guy.
Yeah, so I would recommend, particularly if you're going to be presenting to investors, that you have a team slide in your presentation that has the key people, at least the co-founders, and particularly to show that you have someone who is in the legal world. I think that would be good for you. And then I'd also like to introduce you to someone in Sacramento. Maybe you know him, maybe you don't. His name is Brett Owens, and he had a startup back in 2007 called Prometa, which was a way for lawyers to track their time, where it would like automatically look at what was going on in their computer and tell them how they had spent their time. I think that spun out. He shows that as of 2017, he's not doing it. The world has changed, and I think it would be an interesting person for you to chat with, particularly in how he reached out and got lawyers to use his system. Because he had some really good years there for a while.
Was he connected with Rich Foreman by chance?
Rich may know him.
Okay.
He has.
But they didn't partner.
He has a new company called Lead Dino, which is a totally different world. but
Okay, yeah, no,
I
that's
think
great.
it'd be
Yeah, I'd love
interesting to
Yeah,
chat
love
with Brett.
Yeah, cool, awesome.
Are you guys funded?
Just self-funded. at the
Just
moment.
self-funded? Yeah, how big is your team? How many people are there all together?
On the team, so right now it's just the four of us. Yeah, so me, the co-founder, Robert, and John. And then over the summer we're taking on some interns. We'll probably take on some more interns. Interns are a lot of work.
They are. They're almost not worth it, to be honest with you.
Expertise
right.
is better.
Yeah.
Your time is valuable.
Yeah.
When you have talked to your potential customers, you mentioned like 50, 50 companies you talked to. And 48 told that they are interested in switching. So have you discussed like everything, like pricing, how you will manage it, how you will support it? So what do you discuss with that 48 customers and they agreed to your terms?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, we didn't have like a set questionnaire. I mean, it was more, we're going in and just talking with them, having casual conversation. We probably should have had some more, so we actually had statistics. But it's really more just casual conversation, showing the product, is this something that you like, what would you like to change? Is this something that you would be interested in switching to, right? So pricing though, we do talk about pricing, and surprisingly, lawyers, as much money as they make, are very cheap, right? So, but given that we're within the price range of industry standard, I mean, if they are using something currently, it shouldn't. I mean, the price isn't going to be an issue for them.
You bring a good value, so your point has been not to be cheap, but the additional value you bring. And why I asked, because like 48 in compared to 50, that's like very good percentage. So I think if like 25 from 50, that will be good result. If you will discuss everything and they will agree, so that will be great result for you.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's a good point. Why not price it higher? I'm sorry. Why not price it higher? Because you do bring additional value. You do stand out. You are gonna be more advanced, but yet you're undermining yourself and kind of. I get it. They're cheap. Right. But in a retrospect, when you add that additional margin, say, listen, the value is greater than what you're actually paying for when you consider all the features.
Yeah.
Do a little reverse psychology.
You want to join my sales team?
Make me a partner. I'll think about it.
All right.
Yeah, actually, that's a so you've come up with your price point just based on you want to be lower than what other people have.
Yeah, we just want to be within the margin.
So that would be a great area to do some market research on and figure out what you can pay.
Cool.
So anyway, we're thank you very much. I was going to save time for one more question, but then you asked a question.
So I'm so sorry, dude.
No, that's cool.